Kalimera, kalispera, kalinichta. No matter where in this wild, wacky, and sometimes wonderful world you might be, thank you for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. It is a new week. It's a blank canvas. Let's paint pictures. Let's tell stories, and let's see if you guys are still mad. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad. Everyone. Back to our usual time slot of 8 p.m. on a Monday, and we will be broadcasting on Mondays at 8 p.m. like we always have done for the last 3 or 4 years. So some scheduling normalcy coming back here to Squad Central. Thank you for those who are also listening on replay and taking the evening off, especially if you are, or the day off, especially if you are in the United States. You're enjoying Labor Day weekend. Also, welcome to Squad Central, one of my favorite humans and one of your favorites. And I can't wait to get his take on all the latest things, the Arsenal. Pedro, aka LeGrove, welcome back to Squad Central.
Hey, how you doing? Thank you for having me on. These graphics, they're so fancy.
I keep them up when I do the intro now because I'm so proud of the graphics. You know, I just want to show off. You know,
Who pulled these together for you? Did you do it yourself?
I actually did. Yeah.
You did it yourself. Wow.
Yeah, I did.
Very cool. Love it. Love the kit. Love the kit mash as well.
Me too. I wasn't sure about this kit at the beginning, and I don't know how you feel about it, but Martinelli in this pose makes me want it really bad.
I like that training top that he's wearing. This one didn't hit me as quickly as the LAFC one that we had.
Oh,
I really like black and gold.
The black and gold.
You don't need time with that, but this one, I'm starting to like it. Johnny from the Arsenal Opinion podcast sent me a picture of him wearing it the other day. I was like, oh, it's quite nice. You going to buy one, or have you bought one already?
I have not.
Arsenal shirts? Do you wear
okay,
Arsenal
so
shirts?
I am not a merch girl, really. I like the retro stuff, so I go a little off kilter. I like streetwear, so if I buy something, it will be retro somehow with some added design on it and stuff. I just won't go out and buy every shirt every season. I've never been that type of girl. Never done it. I don't know what that is. That bad?
I don't either.
Oh, okay, good. I feel better now.
I like now. I'll buy the shirt of the club that I work for, but I'm not. I don't rush out to buy Arsenal shirts. Do you know why?
Did you just want to sneak that in because of yesterday? Huh?
We're gonna have to talk about it. We're gonna have to talk about it.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I was talking on a podcast with some younger people the other day, and I was saying, or maybe I was just out. When I moved to America, I went to like a house party in Brooklyn, and people were wearing soccer shirts. And I was like, wow, like you would just never do that in London when I was in London, because there was you couldn't get into certain bars in London if you were wearing colors. Like if you showed up to an event wearing a sports shirt, it's like, oh mate, we're going out tonight. What are you wearing a football shirt for? But it's now sort of slinked over to England where it's kind of like high fashion. You know, Palace do those crazy. You know, every high-end fashion brand's got their own version of a shirt. But because it was a bit of a social faux pas to wear soccer shirts growing up, I don't do it anymore. So I'm not into it. And also, you have to be quite ripped to wear some of those Arsenal shirts these days.
Well, those
Puma kits,
the Puma kits were just like painted on, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good evening, squaddies at ease. Welcome on this fine Monday. I have to say it is so hot here and I'm sweating like swine. And forgive me, but I may have to get a towel a la Alcaraz, after the first set here. It's so hot. I don't know what it's like in the Midwest, Pedro.
It's like LA today. It's like LA.
So
It is absolutely it,
baking.
it is perfection. It's 26 degrees Celsius, a little
Oh,
bit of a breeze in the air. Oh, I mean, we get like 3 days like this a year. Um,
nice.
but it's good times out here.
Very nice. All right, welcome to hey Patrick, how you doing? Good to see you in chat. Please do listen to our Chief Like Officer Tammy, who is here to keep you guys in check. We have PW here. We have Mark here, who's going to come on and play his guitar for you guys one night. Maybe we'll get Demian on the old drums as well. Trevor is here. Ian is here. And thank you for the birthday wishes. I really do appreciate it, everybody. Trev's here. Carol's here. Thank you, Carol. I am 21 again. That's all I'm going to say.
That's
Wow.
Where did you go? Where did you go for? Where did you get? You went out today for your birthday, didn't you?
Well, it's still only noon here in my time. So Tony did breakfast for me. Vinny and Vesper brought me my cards this morning. We've been chilling California style. And yeah, I've just been kind of hanging out and laying low and doing my thing. I was in England, then came back, then went to Arizona, and now I am here.
Jet
But
set lifestyle. Jet set lifestyle.
we try, we try. Good evening, Rich. Good evening, Rosalind. Good evening, Demsec. I know. I'll tell you guys. I am. You say I'm looking good. Maybe. I am 53 years old today, and I'm proud to say it out loud, Pedro. I am
You look
old enough
great.
to be Martinelli's mum.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
I think if you're the way that I look at age is you only have problems with age if you haven't done all the things that you want to do. If you're happy with where you are in life, I hit the 4-0 recently, and people are like, "Oh, how
Mm.
do you feel? Is it causing you problems?" I was like, "No, I feel quite happy with where everything's gone. I don't have any regrets, so I'm going to
I
enjoy it."
love
So
that.
yeah,
I
so
love that.
congrats on the 5-3.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I've got to put this message up from my squad. Happy birthday from the 842 crew. Vinny, Vesper, and I love you so much. Loving how the squaddies are genuine. See how genuine you are. Ah, sweetheart. I love you. I mean, when you have someone like Tony in your corner, you're winning in life. And she's the best. Vinny and Vesper are the best. I always say, like, if you've got a happy home, you have a happy life. And anything beyond that is gravy. And you're right. We'll take a couple minutes to talk about this, squaddies. You know how we like to do lifestyle at the beginning of the show. I do feel like I've lived. You know what I mean? When you kind of look back at your experiences and what you've done, my corporate career wise, the stories that I could tell, the experiences that I've had. I love that you feel that way when you hit 42 and you think to yourself, you know what? It's been pretty cool. It's been pretty good. It's cool, right?
And there's still more stories
Mhm.
to be told. There's still more adventures to go on. You got your channels growing. Yeah, and if you're happy at home and you feel like you've had a storied life today and you still feel like there's opportunity to carry that on, like why be sad about a number? And
Yeah,
those numbers they come to everybody.
they
That's the other
do.
thing. Yeah, my
They
my
do.
mum always used to say, she'd say, there is no achievement in being young. If I would ever talk about her age, she's like, "There's no achievement, and it will come for you." I'm like, "All right, it does." So I've got
Wow,
a
that's brilliant, this is the first one without my mum, and it's pretty profound. Um, to the kind of like the woman who brought you into this world. For the first time ever, I didn't get a phone call from my mom today. And
oh man,
that's you know, it's deep, but at the same time, you kind of look back and you think, wow, I was so lucky to have her for all the birthdays that I did. But I'm not going to lie, it does hit you in a different way. It feels like a different kind of birthday this year because of that reason.
yeah, and that's tough. And it's when you lose a parent, I lost a mum as well, and it's like it's the little things. It's just those
Mm,
little those little bits that get you, or when you when you want to, like, I have, this is quite sad, but I used to take pictures and send them to my mum. And then when she's not
Hmm.
there, whenever I see a nice flower, I'm like, oh, and it's like just the,
I love
just the
that.
little things.
Yeah.
But birthdays are the same. So I'm sorry that that's
Yeah,
your
no.
first one.
Tony used to give her mum a birthday card as well on her birthday because it was her birthday too, and which I thought was brilliant. I love that idea. So here's to all the mums out there, and here's to all the people celebrating their birthday today. And there are some famous birthdays today, but we won't rattle through those. But yeah, no, it's good. It's good to be here and good to be with you. Speaking of numbers, the Arsenal have started off their season. I think we were all expecting maybe 9 points, but if we were going to drop points, maybe I think we thought that would be against Aston Villa,
Yeah.
not necessarily against Brighton. I can't start the show without asking you. You've probably talked about it with the boys on the Arsenal Opinion podcast and also written in your column on Le Grove about what happened on Saturday with the referee. What your thoughts are, Pedro, if the referee did blow it, but at the same time, how culpable is Declan Rice? What is your take on this? With 2 days now almost past, have you had a different perspective to digest this?
My perspective at the time was, if as a referee, you have to want to give that decision. You have to really want to give it. It's a spiteful decision. It's not a normal thing to do. There was no common sense shown. You just want to ruin the game. You want to ruin the game, and maybe you want to ruin the game after for Arsenal. That's a grudge decision. Um, I thought it was interesting reading around all of the actually by the letter of the law crowd after, like, almost nobody in football, even John Terry, thinks that was a good decision. I immediately thought the only decision that I could think of that was worse for ruining a game was Robin van Persie, Barcelona,
Oh,
when they
yeah.
sent him off early. But then I started thinking back. I was like, well, Granit Xhaka got sent off against Manchester City. Tomiyasu sent
Mhm.
off for time wasting. Martinelli, 2 yellow
Yeah. Oh,
cards
too
in
for that
within the
throw in.
same sequence.
Mhm.
And it's like, there's part of you is like, well, it's nice that every fan of every other club is like, that's a disgusting decision. But the thing that frustrates me is it seems Arsenal every season have at least one game where it's like a never been before moment happens. And it always happens to us. And eventually Howard Webb sends a letter to Arsenal and apologizes for it. And it's frustrating because it never happens to Manchester City. Never. Can you think of any controversial decisions that happened to Manchester City? And it's like, when you are going up against the juggernaut of City with all of their finances, their ability to play players €1 million a week, you need some things to go for you. And Arsenal probably dropped 6 or 7 points each season for utterly baffling decisions. And with regards to culpability for Declan Rice, I mean, there's always an opportunity to be better, but this is a guy that's never been sent off in his professional career.
Yeah.
I don't think the offense stacks up. So I'm still pretty disgusted. I think it ruins the game, and I think it's I think the Premier League have got to get hold of this problem, because Howard Webb's been in there a long time now, and it's the same old faces making the same old problems with no real solutions other than going on TV and gassing about it.
Pedro, there's a lot at stake in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And we're talking, big corporations, Fortune 500 companies, they get a bad review. They make a mistake in a marketing campaign. Maybe they don't make a mistake. Maybe it's the way it's perceived by their consumers. You could look at Bud Light. You could look at a bunch of different companies.
Solo stoves with Snoop Dogg. The
Yeah.
CMO got canned for that.
And when you think about the Premier League and its value in the football marketplace, but also in the global economic marketplace from a collaborative partnership and sponsorship perspective, we're talking about billions and billions of dollars, pounds. And we're also talking about a lot at stake for individual properties, and I say that with respect, you guys, let's say teams, but they're businesses at the end of the day. Arsenal is also a team, it's a club, it's a business. And that is just too much to handle. What do you think about the officiating in the Premier League, and how do we move past this, or how do we move? What do we need to do? Who's going to change it? Howard Webb isn't. You had Dermot Gallagher defending the decision on Sky and trying to kind of waffle his way through the decision when earlier in the game, Pedro kicked the ball, 20 yards and didn't get a card. How do we maneuver through this with the consequences being so huge for promotion, for relegation, for top four being in Europe? How do we deal with this?
Well, I think in the 22-23 season, 13 Premier League managers lost their job. I think that season only one referee lost their job because of a mistake against Arsenal, and then he got a job coaching referees a little bit later on in the season. So there's no consequence for shocking decisions. It seems to be the way that it looks to me. It's almost like referees are part of the entertainment, part of the conversation. Howard Webb coming in as a referee was supposed to fix it. I haven't seen many of the fixes, and my concern there is it's like you're bringing in a union person to look after union people, and I don't think that is an appropriate way to address systemic problems within refereeing. So I've written about this quite extensively over the last decade. I think one area that I would focus on is how much they're paid. I saw this interesting clip from Tony Blair talking about how Singapore became a global powerhouse. One of them was that everybody should speak English. The second thing that they implemented is they paid all of the politicians. Singapore politicians are the most expensively paid in the world, and the byproduct of that is that if there's any corruption, they're kicked out of government straight away. I think referees earning 150 grand a year, I know that's a huge salary for a lot of people, so I'm not undermining that that's a big amount of money. But in the grand scheme of sport, that is not a lot of money. And that job is one of the worst in sport. You know, people knocking on your door, people abusing you when you go and buy a sandwich in Tesco's. It's not a nice job, and I don't think it attracts best-in-class people. So address the money, make it an attractive job to go into so you get a better caliber of talent coming up. I think there need to be consequences baked into the system. I can't keep on seeing Jared Gillett making mistakes. I can't keep on seeing Kavanagh making these awful mistakes week in, week out. There is no consequences for failure. 13 managers go in a season, almost no referees, and then they get folded back into the system. So create a consequences-based system. I think they need to refresh and bring people up from divisions below more regularly. I think there needs to be, I don't know if there is, but I think, is there an analyst for referees? Premier League football clubs get an analyst who sits in with the coach and says, here's what Brighton are going to do. This is how they foul. This is how they take set pieces. Does anybody sit down with the referees and say, listen, Brighton are going to rotate who smacks Saka. So if it happens more than twice, the third person is going to get a yellow card and you're going to be warned about attacking a player. So make referees smarter. Use technology in a better way. Like alert referees on a watch. Okay, this guy's on his fourth or fifth foul. Like give them better tools. And I think the final one is let's get some diversity into the mix. And I know some people might sigh at that. Like there needs to be diversity of referees, that majority are white. And I say that because it speaks to the old boys club that they've got. Majority are white, majority are from the northwest of England. Last season, there wasn't a single referee from London. There wasn't a black referee in the mixer. Look at the diversity on the pitch. Like we've got a bunch of older white guys from the northwest doing a terrible job. Like let's bring in some London referees. Let's bring some more referees in from the south. Let's look at where the referees are from, where they grew up, and consider tribalism might be affecting some of the decisions, and stop putting Greater Manchester referees in charge of Arsenal games, or putting Jared Gillett in charge of Arsenal in a title run-in when he's a Liverpool fan. Like, there are so many problems. And then just the final one, the idea that a nation state in the middle of a season that owns a football club can fly out 3 referees to ref a game in the United Arab Emirates, how that is not a soft corruption, at the very least, how that is not perceived as soft corruption is beyond me. Like, you don't have to, like, hey, we're going to fly you out, we're going to put you up first class, we're going to pay you a chunk of money, and then you're going to come back and ref in the Premier League. What are you thinking as a referee? After my career's done, maybe I can go out there and earn a bit of extra money. Just the fact that that was glossed over and we just walked past it is beyond the pale to me. I'm not saying anybody did anything underhand, but just the very premise that nations are looking after Premier League referees, that should be a national scandal. But the refs are still in jobs and there were no consequences. So we're in a no consequences world for anything, and no one's asking questions. We're just like, well, we just accept that, and we accept it because Howard Webb is part of a union and he looks after people, instead of saying, hey, there needs to be some blood on the floor here so that people sharpen up and get better and stop making ridiculous decisions like the one we saw at the weekend.
A lot to unpack there, but wow, brilliant suggestions. And thank you for bringing up the jolly to the Middle East for some of these referees. The fact that, here's the problem, because let's get stuck into this a little bit. It's the same with the 115 charges. One of the things that really sickened me towards the end of the season was, of course, Pep Guardiola's Manchester City play really good football. Of course, he still has to manage the squad, play the games, get points in order to win the league. But of course, they're at an advantage because when you see some of the players who are playing for them now, some of them are from the era of said allegations. And from said allegations to now, they've been able to establish certain situations, right? So when you take that into account, what sickens me is how the media just sycophantically laud them like they're the second coming. And I think that when people want to be self-righteous, like when Gary Neville wants to be self-righteous and go after the Tories, for example, and I'm just giving this as an example, not because I'm a Tory and I don't talk politics on my show, but I'm just showing you when Gary Lineker wants to go after, how immigrants are treated, when they want to go after a subject, when they want to highlight something, they're viciously aggressive about how they do that, right? When they want to highlight Qatar, the World Cup, they didn't. They're all getting a big paycheck. The convenience of the storytelling is what sickens me to my core. So when the season is at its crescendo, and then when they win, and also the actual kind of wishing that we don't win, when really they should be rooting for a team like Arsenal, a historic club, a club steeped in, nostalgia, who's done it the right way. And to not want us to win and to actually be willing for us not to win. Pedro, I don't get any of that. People have every right to say what they want about any subject they want, but it's convenience that really pisses me off.
Yeah. Everybody's got principles until someone puts a fat check in front of their face. That's the rules. And it's I sometimes as fans we get suckered into thinking that these players are everyday people. They've been earning, 10x, 50x, 100x what the average man, woman on the street earns since they were 18 years old. So yeah, not a lot of there's not a lot of principle in some of those pundits. I think part of the reason that people haven't been talking about the charges, I think English press laws are allow you to get sued. You know, we've seen Mark Goldbridge getting cease and desist letters for some of the things that he was saying last season, and I think it was Carol Caldwater. Do you know
Mm-hmm.
the Guardian journalist who got
Mm-hmm.
sued by the Brexit guy? And I think she was right, but she got dragged through court. So I think everybody's a little bit careful about how they frame it. But and the second part of that question, I think, is Arsenal matter, Liverpool matter. I don't think Manchester City matter to people in the same way. You know, like they don't spark any emotion in the same way. And Arsenal coming back from the dead and showing that you can be smart with your money and you can build back slowly with sharp strategy, discipline, a profile of players, a style of play, like ruthless focus on continuous improvement. I think that rankles people. You know,
Mm.
Gary Neville has been watching and hoping that Man United are going to get back to their best for the last 10 years, and it never happens. And it's easy to go, well, you know, look what Manchester City are doing. They just throw money at it. But then when Arsenal come out of the blue, and we spent money, but we've done what Manchester United haven't been able to do, and still to this day can't do. And I think it upsets people. So I think the unfair coverage is Gary Neville also said he didn't know he didn't understand the Arsenal strategy. And when we win the Premier League this season, that's going to look like a really, really bad comment. And he knows that's coming. But I think overall, it's like people would prefer to see City win because it doesn't hurt them in the same way. If Arsenal win, there's going to be a lot of hurt feelings across Liverpool fans, Man United fans, Chelsea fans. Everyone hates us because we matter in football.
You know, actually, I did a show with Kwaku, who's a Chelsea fan, and Harriet, who's a Liverpool fan, and they're on Sky and Talksport, and two wonderful broadcasters. And when we did that show, they said it's the reason why is because if Arsenal win, it puts the spotlight more on their club. And it's not
100%.
because
Yeah.
they don't like Arsenal and how we play. In fact, the two of them are hugely complimentary about Arteta and our style and our evolution and revolution and Arsenal 2.0. But if we win it, then it puts the spotlight. And you're 100% correct about that. And also the listeners are loving your take on the referees. So we need to move on from that, right? This has happened early in the season. Is it a good or bad thing, Pedro? I'm gonna get to the North London derby in the City game, but this type of adversity, I know Mikel thrives on it and he utilizes it, a la George Graham. Um, I actually said to him when we were in LA, and I said to the executive team, he reminds me of George Graham, but he may be even more ruthless than that. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Third game in.
I think it's a bad thing. I think any points dropped for things out of your control is a bad thing. I find it a bit dramatic. Arsenal fans saying Premier League season's over. It's like, come on, grow up, guys. I we're still going to be at the top come the end of the season. City are going to drop points. I think my my solace is I think come the end of the season, I don't think this. We don't need to go into detail, but I don't think Manchester City are going to be in contention come the end of the season. I think people are completely forgetting, what's going to happen in September. The ruling that's potentially going to come down in February. I really think people are underestimating what's going to happen there, and I think Arsenal will go from strength to strength. If it's we had a good performance. We played well. We should have buried them. We have 5 clear-cut chances. A little bit better finishing. That decision the ref makes doesn't matter. I think Arteta will be focused on improving in those elements, but I don't think it's it's a bad thing for Arsenal, but I don't think it's fatal by any stretch. And now we've got the opportunity to make it up with 2 massive away games against top 6 contenders.
You bring me on to my next subject, weaved in beautifully without even knowing it, because the meltdown online so early in the season, the vitriol towards the club, Edu, you know, come on. Who saw the Mikel Merino thing coming? Life can be really shit sometimes, guys, and weird crap can happen. And Gabriel's a beast, and he's proven it again by landing on his teammate. And now folks are saying that he might be out for up to 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
Um, you know, however, do you think that the kind of reaction to what's happened, looking ahead to the North London derby, the Manchester City game? I was on a podcast a few days ago, and I don't think I've been that abused by so-called Arsenal fans since I started doing this. Because
Abused.
yeah. I mean, it was horrific.
Oh my gosh, it's awful.
It was the worst thing I've ever encountered,
What podcast?
actually. It was Dan's podcast, Dan Potts, and Dan actually stopped the show to literally tell people to F off because they were being so abusive to me and what I was saying.
Oof.
And when a host has to stop the show, and he told them, like, you can't come on here and, talk to a friend of mine like that. But also, it's just bizarre to me that, look, at first, Pedro, we've had many conversations. I wasn't a fan of Mikel. I couldn't see in my crystal football that we would be where we are today. All I could see what was in front of me. And I'm a very in the moment person. Sure, I can be a visionary in my own world and in terms of what I do. And in football, though, you don't want to go too far ahead because you don't want to catch yourself in certain situations. And people kind of still hold on to that even when I wasn't seeing it like a year and a half in. But the fact that I was positive about the transfer window, about the fact that we're only 3 games in, that, we have stability, we have a spine. I think our quality is better than our quantity than we had last year. The Merino thing is just unfortunate. I think Gabriel Jesus is actually going to have a really good season if he can stay fit, and I think he will. These kind of niggly things. I think Zinchenko, having spoken to someone high up at the club, is playing like he has a point to prove. He can feel the players breathing down his neck. And so I just didn't understand this attack on the club so early in the season after Declan Rice gets sent off and everyone's thinking, well, there's no Merino, there's no Declan Rice. Screw the North London derby. We're going to get effed by Manchester City. It's over.
It's football fandom is not very pleasant. It's not these people. I think that the panic sets in with fans very quickly. People are not rational. People don't think long term. People don't even have context season to season. I think Arsenal are in great shape. We got I'm a big fan of half season tables, and that would get me a lot of vitriol back in the day. Be like, listen, if you look at the back half of the season, we're better defensively, we're better attacking, and if we start well, then we're being people like, you can't think about football that way, but you can, and it's been proven out. And Arsenal's back end of the season, from January to May, we scored 51 goals. We conceded the least in the Premier League. We played attacking, free-flowing football. We were absolutely walloping teams. And the team that we've got out at the moment is that team. So this, people getting upset about Moreno. You've never seen him play. Don't know how he's going to be deployed. He's bonus. I think we're in really good shape. You've got Raheem Sterling, which is a stunning signing, and I've gaslit myself into believing that this is possibly.
Your post.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's quite honestly, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, this is a now player in their prime who's been hurting us for years, and he's got a point to prove. And I think he's going to be absolutely sensational. I think Man City and Spurs, they're going to be hard games. But like, what are we really missing? We've added Timber. We've got Calafiori who can step in to shore up defense. We're playing great football. We're only going to be missing Declan Rice, but like, come on, 2 years ago we'd be like Thomas Partey in midfield. Let's go. So I'm with you. I don't understand. I do understand why people get upset. You know, I get emotional about transfers, but I've been writing and thinking about them for so long now. I don't get as emotionally invested as I once did. But just remember, this time last year, people were saying that the Kai Havertz transfer was going to end Mikel Arteta. He was the worst signing in our history. Our start to the season, we play rubbish, bland football. That's what people were saying last year. People hated the transfer. And now Kai Havertz is an absolute fan
Freaking
favorite.
love
So
him.
people wanted to sack Mikel Arteta after 18 months. People said Martin Odegaard was a boring signing and that Hossam Aouar was going to be the player to take us forward. We weren't going to succeed without signing Vlahovic. The season that Conte pipped us to top four was our last chance of getting into the top four. Saliba wasn't going to sign the new deal. Saka wasn't going to sign a new deal. There's a lot of people with big mouths who get it wrong over and over and over again. And you always have to remember it. They're like, being the most controversial, vitriolic fan online has no consequences when you're wrong. It has no consequences whatsoever. Being positive and being wrong does seem to have consequences, which is very odd. No one pulls up old tweets about people saying that, all the people that are saying Raheem Sterling is dusted. Let's see where they are in 3 months' time. And you pull them up and they're like, well, it doesn't matter. Can't we just enjoy it? Can't we just enjoy it? But if you make a positive assertion and things go wrong, people are like, it's your fault. People would actually email me in during the Arteta, the early days. People would email me and say, this is your fault. Literally, I just write about Arsenal. They're like, your toxic positivity has led us to destruction. It is your fault. I'm like, no one's emailing me in saying it's my fault that Arsenal are in a good position now. But that's just football fandom. You are part of the theatre of Arsenal, I'm afraid, and people think they can throw tomatoes, and it's not cool.
This is why I love talking to you, because you have such great takes and I love your analogies on things. It's funny because my mate Potsy, he wanted Usam Hour, and listen, I'll sit here and say I got it wrong about Mikel Arteta. My listeners know, that was, I think at the time I felt like I was talking from my heart and I was saying what I was seeing, but I would rather be wrong than right, because being wrong means that my team succeeds. Yeah. And the one thing that I just don't like, and I'll move off this subject, you guys, is the emotional part. So these guys can say what they say with passion and this energy, but when I do it, I'm emotional. Women are emotional, men are not. And I don't like that. And I'll just leave it at that. It's my biggest pet peeve. It actually
Arsenal
winds
fan
me.
TV has been built off emotionally unstable men. That's crazy. That's
Yeah, it's a crazy take. By the way, on Saturday, I felt like these two were brewing to have quite the game. I turned to Tony and I said, "Oh, I feel like between the two of them, they're going to get 3 or 4 goals." I love their partnership. I love how in sync they are. I love what they were doing, and the red card kind of stifled that. You mentioned Kai. I'm really sick and tired. I talked about this on Talksport last week, and I'm so sick and tired of the disrespect towards Kai Havertz. I won't even engage in a conversation anymore with anyone, because if you can't see it, and I think it was one of our listeners who put up the stats and what he's contributed, Pedro. What is it? What is it about him that people just can't embrace? And also that striker position, the one everyone wants, that like Haaland, but also knowing how Arteta plays, looking at our record last season, the disrespect is real, and and it won't stop.
I I think um people don't understand. Some people don't understand what they've got with Kai. He I think the NBC commentator said, Arsenal don't have a Haaland-like character. Well, only one team in world football has a Haaland-like character. No one else gets near Haaland these days. He's the new Cristiano, pure brute force, grown in a lab. But I don't think Kai. I would obviously love Haaland in our system, but I think Kai Havertz offers us more of what we need. He's tactically flexible. He can play across the front line. He's a bully in the same way that Haaland is. He's got, his strength isn't far off Haaland's strength, in my opinion. I think the only thing that he lacks is a little bit of polish in front of goal. But he's on, this 2024, he's on to be a 20-goal striker this year. That's your tall boy summer. He is the striker now. He is the man. And I'm with you. I loved the partnership that he was forming with Saka. I love seeing him when he slipped out into the right and fed that assist in that Saka narrowly missed. I think he's a brilliant striker. I think sometimes aloof players that are kind of expressionless have a more difficult time building connection with certain types of fans. He's a baby-faced assassin that never shows emotion on his face. And Mesut Ozil had those problems throughout his career. People thought that he didn't care. But I think if you're criticizing Kai Havertz now, as the kids would say, you don't know ball. Like you are an unserious person, aren't you?
Yeah.
If somebody,
to me, he's like a teddy bear with a shotgun.
Yeah, but he gets away with things that a more emotional striker wouldn't, because you're like, he wouldn't have that look on his face if he just threw out an elbow there. So it's kind of an asset for him.
So let's fast forward a little bit through this international break that has come. I just feel like we got over the Euros, and here we are with an international break, Pedro. September always, when it comes around, it's like, sehr langweilig. Like, do we have to go through this, again? And so I want to fast forward while I have you on, because I love how you see the game. You can also be avant-garde in your approach to team selection when there is an injury. There's lots of creativity going on out there with the fact that Rice won't be playing in the North London derby. Mikel Merino won't be available. Hopefully Jesus will be back. What do you see against Tottenham in particular first, if we want to tackle that? Who starts and where for you?
I think Kai Havertz is going to drop into the left 8 position, and then you've got some interesting options. Jesus, I suspect, will be fit for the game. He brings an element of chaos to the forward line that maybe sometimes we've lacked. I think he'll enjoy a massive derby game. I think he's extremely motivated. I thought your point at the top of the show about Jesus having a big season, I think that could be a real one. He knows that not only is his position under threat in the Arsenal team, his career is a little bit under threat, because if he doesn't make it this season, if he doesn't show that he can be fit and score goals, then I don't think it's an Arsenal level move at his next club. I think he's dropping down a level, and I don't think he'll want that. So, and then the real curveball in the mixer is you have Sterling. Sterling has played in that striker position for Manchester City. He can play on the left. He can play on the right. He's a big game player, and he's another guy. He's got a point to prove. Chelsea trying to bin him, making him train with the kids. It's disgraceful. He's going to want to put 18 goals to his name this season, and I guarantee you, he's sitting at home right now, and the movie playing in his head is Sterling comes on in a North London derby, or he starts and he makes an impact instantly, and Arsenal fans fall in love. This is a Chelsea player. You come with a Chelsea tax. You come with a Manchester City tax. You've got to win the fans. Yeah, you've got a double tax. You've got to win the fans over early, and I bet Arteta is licking his lips. So I think there are lots of options. Talk of Timber coming into the midfield. I think people are forgetting Declan Rice hasn't been playing as a 6. He's been playing as the left-sided 8. So we've just got to hope that Thomas Partey can have a big game and concentrate throughout, and he doesn't get done for physicality through the middle. But I'm feeling pretty confident about this Tottenham game. I think we're going to make a big statement especially after
Yeah.
they lost yesterday, undeservedly so.
No, yeah, I don't know how they lost that game, but I'm glad that they did. You know, I think Tottenham fans have gotten a little bit excited about the fact that Declan Rice isn't available. I think, and don't shoot me, don't at me, let me know what you think in the YouTube comments. I'm a huge Declan Rice fan. I love him. I think he's amazing. He's been so poor at the start of this season. And maybe it's because he's played a lot of football, Pedro. You can take it back to West Ham's European run, then Arsenal, then the Euros, now this. He seems a player who looks exhausted. That first challenge just seemed like a non-Declan challenge that just felt like, trying to make up the pace, knowing you weren't going to get the ball. Even the look on his face just felt like, he just seems a step slow. So, with that said, listen, he's so important and was fundamental to us last season. But I want to just tap into some other stuff with you here. Is there a chance, we see it sometimes with clubs, managers who throw young players into big games. Can you see a Waneri or a Lewis Skelly? Arteta is really not a risk taker like that. Is it going to be Jorginho, Partey, Odegaard? You said Havertz. Jorginho pace-wise, is he going to be last 25 minutes? How do you see that going?
Uh, I I don't think he'll. There's always a possibility that he could roll on a Waneri late in the game, but I don't think he would risk in a North London derby a young player having an accident. I think he will create opportunities for those two in safer environments, like maybe some of the latter Champions League games. We've got the League Cup coming up pretty soon. I think we drew Bolton. I saw that was a blast from the past. I think Arteta will look to change as little as possible. And I think Declan Rice exiting, like you have a player that can do a similar job. I think he'll look to put Kai into the midfield, and then I think the front line is where he's more likely to change things up. And defensively, it's going to be interesting as well. I didn't think Timber was particularly great for a chunk of that Brighton game. Does he bring Zinchenko back into the mix? Who
In
looked
what way? Going forward and being the inverted role and connecting the dots, or defensively?
I felt he was a little bit loose defensively at times. I think he looks like he's trying too hard at the moment. I don't know whether you sort of get that impression, like making up for lost time. Um,
Mm.
uh, but I think what we might learn with Timber this season is any of those sort of inverted fullbacks are going to be high risk. And if we thought that we were going to end mistakes with Zinchenko sitting on the bench, I don't think that's going to be the case. And I think that maybe I built Timber up a little bit too much in my head, forgetting that he's a very young player. He's never played in the Premier League, and he's going to take some bedding into the side after not being about for a year. So not a big criticism. He's not quite the perfection that maybe a lot of Arsenal fans have built up.
I love that you said that, because this is my cousin George was saying this to me. He goes, "Stop with the Timber thing, stop." And the truth is, he was right. We hadn't seen him play at that level. We saw a glimpse, and then the injury happened. We saw him in preseason be really good. And one of the things that I've defended and stood up for is Zinchenko not becoming the next scapegoat of Arsenal Football Club for fans. We have
Yeah.
the tendency to do this, right? You can go back to the Bellerin days. You can talk about Xhaka, Zinchenko, Jesus last season a little bit, Zinchenko especially, Martinelli now on the cusp of potentially becoming one of those, although his performance at the weekend, if he'd have been able to play naturally again 11 versus 11, I actually think that we'd be talking about how effective he was when he came on the pitch. Um, you don't see anything wacky in the sense of a Zinchenko playing in the midfield, do you? He essentially does, but officially, do you see that happening?
I feel like it's the same conversation that Liverpool fans have about Trent going into the midfield, and Klopp was always like, "But he's one of the best right backs. Why would I put him in midfield?" And then we saw Trent at the Euros playing midfield for a little bit, and it wasn't very inspiring. I don't think I see Zinchenko in the midfield because I don't think the problem is, assuming that you're thinking that he would play as a 6 versus
Yes.
yeah. I think Thomas Partey will get the nod there. I
Hmm.
could see Zinchenko getting the nod to start at left back though. I could see
Yeah,
that. I
I could
don't
see
think
that.
Arteta is going to completely alienate a player that he absolutely adored. And because if they were going to do that, if they weren't going to give him minutes this season, he would have been an asset we could have sold. So I do wonder whether there'll be a little bit of creativity there and bringing him back into the mix, because he was pretty good at during preseason,
He
in my
was great
opinion.
in preseason,
Yeah,
and I had a conversation with someone, you know, who's associated with the club and in a way, and you guys know I don't say this stuff unless it's real. But the person told me that he feels the competition and he's upped his game. And this is what we've wanted at Arsenal, Pedro, for so long, right? The only position I think where there's no competition really is Saka. If Tomiyasu's fit, if Zinchenko's continually fit, you got Tommy who can compete with Ben White. Maybe the centre back positions, because they're just so up there. Although they haven't started the season well either. Copa America, I think Euros again, taking a little bit of the zap.
Calafiori is coming for Gabriel. Mark my words, Calafiori is coming for Gabriel this
Talk
season.
to me about that.
I think I actually think some of the like Gabriel's been playing some pretty awesome like long balls into channels. I mean, he's been sort of going above and beyond to make those moves. But I think Calafiori was bought because he's potentially an upgrade on Gabriel. I don't think we will see it before Christmas, but I'm expecting him to get minutes. Arteta wouldn't spend that much money on a backup. I think Calafiori has all the aggression of Gabriel, but I think he's more cultured on the ball, and I think he offers those opportunities that sort of carrying the ball, going through the middle of the park, and the link-up play with the strikers. He has a higher ceiling than Gabriel, and I think Gabriel has been absolutely outstanding for the last 2 seasons. But I think if there is an opportunity to upgrade, Arteta doesn't care about reputation, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Calafiori take in minutes off Gabriel, especially if he makes mistakes moving forward. So I think that that's going to be a lot of people said, oh, he's coming in as a left back, and I know that his debut at home he came on as a left
Mhm.
back, but if you go through some of the old quotes, his Basel manager said to him, "You will never make it as a top level left back because you're not fast enough. So play inside as a left-sided centre back, and then use your skills that you learn at left back to evolve your game." So the idea that he would suddenly become a great left back in the Premier League just doesn't stack up. So I think he's coming for Gabriel's position.
You know, Mike, I don't think it's that Gabriel can't get any respect. He's massive to us here on the show. You know how much Super Kev loved him too. And he's brilliant and has been brilliant. But we're talking here about making up the inches against Manchester City. And I've been talking about this a lot, Pedro, over the last few weeks. There's a reason why you sell ESR, why you sell Nketiah, you know, why you let players like that go. There's a reason why you bring Trossard in the January transfer window, why he starts against Martinelli. Martinelli starts, Trossard doesn't. He wants chaos in the sense of competition. He doesn't want players resting on their laurels. You know, now we're seeing in the midfield position, Mikel Merino. Which midfielder needs to be looking out for themselves the most in terms of their position? It's not a case of disrespect. It's a case of, in sports, things move quickly, and Mikel is an instant gratification manager, right? Look at Kivior. He hasn't played hardly since the Bayern Munich Emirates display, Pedro,
Yeah,
you know, and Mikel's ruthless. And I think that's what we've wanted. It's so Agree. It's not a case of disrespect. It's a case of this manager trying to make up the inches against the machine that is Manchester City.
Yeah, he wants to be the best in the world, and if there is an opportunity to make a 5% gain on Manchester City, you're exactly right. He's gonna take that. And sport is uh, sport is survival of the fittest at its peak. I love comparing it to the corporate world. Like when you watch how ruthless sport is and how fast you have to make these gains. It's a sight to behold. But just remember, back in the day, I mean, Arsene Wenger would never have upgraded Olivier Giroud, even though we knew that he wasn't the level that we needed to kick on.
Mm-hmm.
If he had a 89-point season, there's no chance that he's adding more competition into the mix or selling as many players as we just sold. So I think it's great having a manager like Mikel Arteta. But if you want to work in this in the culture that he has, you have to be prepared that people are going to come and take shots at your position. And players like Trossard, he could have come in and said Martinelli's always going to be ahead of him, but he's usurped Martinelli, which nobody expected. So I'm not saying that Gabriel's not a top player. I'm not saying that he can't improve. He's 26 years old. But I think when you sign a player like Calafiori, it's not to sit on the bench. He has all of these special features and functions that other players don't have. And I'm sure that Arteta is like, when we get this kid up to speed, he's going to offer us something no one else has in the Premier League. So
Totally.
I think it's an exciting thing, and it's definitely not disrespect to Gabriel. I think he's great, but this is the circle of life in football, and if a manager can do something better, they should.
Agree with you. And he's my Maldini 2.0 brewing. And a lot of people saying you're spitting facts. They're even the cameo that he had for 10 minutes against Aston Villa, coming on, in a high pressure situation where unfortunately we changed the landscape of the game because of the sentinel. We didn't, but the referee did. But still, Declan has to be a little bit better there. Okay, so there are a lot of squaddies in chat. We'll get you out on these. Thanks to everyone who's listening. Please do hit the like button. And Suraj is in tonight. So just for Suraj, I've got to do this. Hit the like button. Vinny's got his bow tie on. It's not Thursday, but he's got it on for mummy today because it's birthday day. And Vespa is channeling her inner David Raya. And in terms of players that we were talking about upgrading, and I love Aaron, and I'm a huge fan, not only of him as a footballer, but as a person, as my listeners know. But again, Mikel Arteta, you could argue, got it right. Maybe the methods weren't right, but in the end, David Raya and how he's played, I think he's been probably our best player along with Kai Havertz and Saka so far this season. So let's get your take on this, Pedro. Our listeners want to know, transfer window wise, who had the best window? I've put us up against here with United, City, and Liverpool, and of course us up against here again with Chelsea and Tottenham. What is your take on the transfer window? Who do you think is in a good position? And to tack on another question for that, are you feeling a little bit afraid of Liverpool, or should we be afraid of Liverpool? Is this love affair and this strong start for Arne Slot going to kind of subside once some of the reality hits in? What's your take?
I think Liverpool have got serious problems this season. It's
Oof,
crazy
wasn't
to me.
expecting that one.
Yeah, it's crazy to me listening to people talking about Slot and his impact. He's picking up Liverpool here. I mean, that's an amazing side. Everybody's fit. He's Slot's big problem is twofold. Number one, he's not Klopp. Doesn't matter how good his management style is. Doesn't matter how much fun he is to be around. Doesn't matter how good his ideas are. He is not Klopp. And that doesn't matter in the beautiful sunshine of England right now. When you get into December, when you start to implement your ideas, when things start to get tough, that's when you're not Klopp, is you're not my real dad sort of stuff starts coming in. The second thing, that nobody's talking about, or maybe some Liverpool fans are, Trent, Salah, and Virgil van Dijk all have 1 year left to go on their deal, and none of them signed new deals. And Liverpool are in such a bind on this one. Trent we've already seen him sulking on the bench and getting a talking to from Slot. You're not my real dad, personified right there, right? Like the look. The second thing with Salah and Van Dijk, the correct decision is not to give them new deals. That's the correct decision. But if you don't give them new deals, they're going to go on free transfers. If you give them new deals, we have all been, as Arsenal fans, we've seen what happens when you give players in their 30s mega new deals. Works for about a season and then things go off a cliff. So Liverpool are in a situation where 2 out of 3 of their players are either going to go or you're going to tie them to new deals and they're going to be expensive and performance is going to dip. And then you're not going to be able to replace them without pain. And if you don't give them new deals, the media are going to be asking questions about those new deals every single press conference. It's going to be the hot topic. Remember when Ozil was out the squad and that was the only question? Remember when Oba was he going to sign a new deal? It puts everybody off and it causes friction inside the dressing room. And then with Salah and Virgil van Dijk, they're most likely going to go to Saudi in the back half of the season when they can smell 20, 30, 40 million pounds tax free. Do you think they're putting their foot into a challenge at Brentford away? Do you think they're putting their bodies on the line? And do you think the rest of the squad is not going to notice when their big names are not putting their bodies on the line? That is going to be such a tinderbox of problems that are coming Slot's way. So I expect things to go well in the first half of the season. I think Slot's got an interesting style of play. I'm sure he's a great manager. Like, I think he was the manager that would come out in the top of the charts for overperforming with a lack of resource. So he's obviously very talented. Michael Edwards is back at Liverpool. He's the guy that brought Klopp in, that convinced Klopp not to sign Julian Brandt and to sign Salah. But they didn't spend a lot of money. Chiesa is your hero player who's missed 80 games over the last 2 seasons. That doesn't feel like a good summer. And then you've got 3 players, 3 big names, 3 big personalities that could all be out next season. And the consequences of that are drastic because you could spend 300 million and get nowhere near Trent, Salah, and Van Dijk. They struck gold. Are they going to strike gold again? I don't think so. So I think it's going to be a rough season for them.
A very interesting take. And so their contracts run out next summer. So would they go on a free? So does that mean January transfer window looks different for Liverpool? Or surely they can't let these assets go when you can get X, Y, and Z for the players? They won't. Well, they wouldn't let them go for free, would they?
Well, you're in a bit of a bind because I'm sure Salah probably earns close to £400,000 a week. He's not going to renew for less. So you put that on the wage bill. Who's going to come in with a big transfer fee for either of them when they're 31, 32 years old? It's difficult because it's costly either way. And I think it's costly from an emotional perspective as well. Losing your captain and one of the best wingers the world has ever seen in the same summer, that's a hit on the squad. Makes it more difficult to recruit. It's a really difficult thing. And even with Trent, I mean, is Trent going to want to sign on in a post Klopp, post Salah, post Virgil van Dijk? Does he want to be part of a laborious rebuild, or does he say, listen, someone's going to probably drop £15 million in my bank account if I go on a free transfer, maybe 20 million. I could maybe get a move to Madrid or Barcelona or any club that I want. Once it gets to December, it gets more tempting. You're like, why am I going to sign? Are you going to give me 20 million?
Yeah.
It's Liverpool goes. It's costly. It's difficult. It's a nightmare. So, and this is what happens at Emery as well. Nobody was Arsene Wenger. Then he fell out with the players and he never recovered. So there's always a manager that's the buffer zone, the David Moyes. And maybe that's Slot. Maybe it's not. But if it's not, it's going to be a difficult rebuild. And striking gold twice, I feel that's unlikely.
Do you think with Diaz and Nunes, it seems like they've repaired what's going on there? Jota, some of our listeners in the chat, just real quick, talking about how they've got the insurance there with those players?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Jota's a good player, but do I don't see him in the same level as those others. Those like you getting a team with generational talent like Liverpool got together last time is so difficult, even when
Mm,
even when you've got loads of money. I mean, look at the mistakes Man City make. Liverpool can't afford to make those mistakes. Like Liverpool's ownership group is trying to sell right now. I don't even think they've got 400 million to replace. So it's like you've got to do it on a budget, and if you've got to do it on a budget, you're taking big risks. And I don't see them dropping 200-300 million and getting a forward line as good as they had, getting a defense as good. I mean, Allison's got 2 years left to go on his deal, I think, as well. So,
mm.
like they're basically replacing the Invincibles, and it's difficult. Not many teams can do that.
No, you're
And
right. And word on the street, Pedro, is that they're more than happy to reboot, including their old manager. Just word on the street. That's
what the Liverpool will reboot.
that they in terms of them and Klopp, I think the club were ready. He was ready. Maybe that there was some thoughts that he was, like Sir Alex Ferguson becoming bigger than the club, or we've seen this happen. The danger of, look at Sir Alex Ferguson and Manchester United. Honestly, if I was a new manager, I would put my foot down and say, I don't want, if he's going to be in the stands, make him be somewhere where he can't be seen and he's not on TV all the time. Every single time Manchester United struggle, it's a shot to, I think one of the most awesome things about Arsenal, and I say this with respect, is the fact that Wenger hasn't been hovering around in the stands, available to media cameras during debacle games, and allowed Arsenal 2.0 to move on. And Jurgen Klopp is doing the same thing. It's the best thing for Liverpool that he doesn't go to games. And if he does, it's a secret and he's wearing a disguise. Do you agree with that or not?
Yeah, no, I don't. I agree with that, and I think Liverpool were. I mean, Klopp was the king there in the end, and
Yeah.
I think that if Michael Edwards was in charge, I don't think I don't think Van Dijk and Salah are there right now. I think he could. I think they would have moved them on. I think if sensible heads were in the room last year when £150 million offer came in for a 29, 30-year-old Salah, I think you take that. You take that money and run. I mean, that is a tremendous amount of money to be able to reinvest in a side. And now they're running the risk of that £150 million bid go into zero. And I'm pretty sure, didn't they re-up Salah and give him
Hmm.
a 400 grand a week contract? I mean, it's just dangerous amounts of money. Yeah, I think Klopp not being there is great. I think Michael Edwards getting his people in there is going to be good for Liverpool in the long term. But I think the bigger concern is, where's the money coming from? Are the Fenway Group going to plow the money back into the club when they're selling? I don't think so. I mean, Chiesa, they gave him one signing, €12 million Chiesa for a new manager. That's
That's
that
not
would be
backing your manager, your
that's
new
not backing your
manager.
manager.
No,
No.
no, not at all. Not at all. And Mike, I just wanted to put your comment up. I don't think Arteta is the club. Not yet. You can't be the club until you win one of the big ones. No way is Arteta the club. I think what he's done is set a foundation and a backbone that, God forbid, if he left tomorrow by his own choice, because the club are not going to let him go, and they shouldn't. But let's just say he said, I'm going to go to Barcelona. He has left the club in such a good shape. And I want to tell you this, and I think this is really important for Arsenal fans to know, Pedro, and you can back me up on this or not. He gets all of the credit. And in most organizations, there's the marketing person, the person who does the panels, person who goes on the road, shakes hands with sponsors and collaborators, and they get all the glory. But do not be mistaken that this new Arsenal has other people behind the scenes, strategically and objectively pulling strings as well. It's not just Mikel Arteta. What he's done is improve the product on the pitch. And of course, he's helped rebuild the culture, make you fall in love with Arsenal again. but he's done it because he's been given the power to do it by some very smart people who know what they're doing. Pedro?
Yeah, I think Arsenal have got a much better infrastructure nowadays. I think they've got some great coaches. I think Edu has been doing a really good job. I do think though he is the club in the sense that if they don't get this new contract signed and he goes somewhere else, things are going to fall apart. It's the players are his. The players are there. They're signing new deals because they're his. Like he is a generational coach, in my opinion, a generational leader, and it would be near impossible for Arsenal to replace him. Like our next 10 years of success are going to be with him at the helm. So hopefully they get this deal lined up. Like football is so fragile, and I spoke to somebody who said, who told me, most football clubs are run by two or three people. They run everything, and I don't think that's any different at Arsenal. But at the head of the table, it's Mikel Arteta, and he's got a power over the fans. He's got a power over leadership. He's got a power um, over the players, and it is imperative that we don't cock up this contract. Just give it to him. He's increasing the revenues. He's increasing the love for the club. Tickets are sold out. We have a connection with the players, and I think that has been mostly driven by him. I think they're trying to build out infrastructure behind him, but when you've got like a Pep Guardiola 2.0 or a Klopp 2.0, you hold on to them and you
I
don't let
agree.
them go.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I do. But sports is also about winning, and it
Yep.
could easily go as pear-shaped as it can go beautifully, if he doesn't deliver a Premier League title. Not because of me. I don't feel the way I did 3 years ago, but fans, and it's already 3 games in, you can see, but most sensible Arsenal fans can see what he's building, and he seems like he wants to stay and build a legacy and a culture. Pedro, you've been absolutely brilliant. Real quick, in a few seconds, not worried about any of the other teams, United, Tottenham, Chelsea. Any concerns in terms
Uh,
of,
the
competitiveness?
My concern is Manchester City, as always. I think Gundogan coming back into the squad
Mm,
is a good move. I think Savinho looks like he's been playing in the Premier League his entire life. So concerned about them.
good signing.
Chelsea have got so many good players that if Maresca can get a turn out of them, maybe they're a threat on top 4 later on in the season. But not really concerned that anybody's moved the needle. I think Arsenal have had a 8 out of 10 window. The only reason it's not 10 out of 10 is because Raheem Sterling is here on loan, and maybe we didn't get the best backup goalkeeper for the next 10 years. And we didn't get a backup striker. But other than that, I think we've had a supreme window, got rid of a lot of players that we loved. But we should be in great shape for next summer. So congrats to everyone at Arsenal. It's been a banger.
This is what got me into trouble the other night, is backing the club and saying it was a really good window, and all the fans who wanted to get rid of Eddie and Emile Smith Rowe and all these players all of a sudden like, where? You asked for it and they did it. And, you got to balance the books as well. You got to be fiscally responsible in today's game, so you don't end up in a Forest, Everton, potentially Leicester, and of course, Manchester City situation. Pedro, let everyone know what's going on the Arsenal Opinion podcast, what you crazies are up to. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, you can if you like daily writing, I've got a website, legrove.co.uk. You can sign up to a mailing list and get a little bit of Le Grove in your inbox every day. And if you like podcasts, we've got one called The Arsenal Opinion. Just search it anywhere. We do YouTube videos like this, and we also are on all good distribution platforms, Apple, Spotify, however you want. But yeah, come join the party.
I love it. And you know what? This season, I love him too, Ian. I think he's one of the best out there. Such interesting takes. Maybe we can get Pedro on once a month and figure that out.
100%. I would love to come
Yeah.
on. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Awesome. All right, brilliant, awesomeness. And follow your give everyone, where can they find the boys as well? They're following your boys as well.
At Matt Candela
Okay.
is UK podcast co-host. You got Johnny Cochran. He's a great follow, and you got Jacob Hawley, who's Hawley Jacob, another great addition to the podcast as well.
Love it. Okay, squaddies, brilliant stuff from Pedro. Please show your gratitude. Give him a follow. Give the Arsenal Opinion podcast a follow if you're not following it already. Also, please don't forget to go to Football Prizes the end of the week. The Dennis Bergkamp sold out. Hopefully one of you guys got lucky for the draw this evening. And today we officially announced our launch of the first ever live Arsenal podcast from Africa. Femi Raji, Afro Gunners, coming to you this Thursday. We are the first to be broadcasting weekly live from the beautiful continent of Africa, and we are very, very excited about that. So please look out on the community page and on X for more information. Until then, I love you, and please don't forget to tell your loved ones you love them. You know the rules. Thank you for all of your birthday wishes. Thank you to Pedro. And until the next time, folks, good night, and at ease, squaddies, at ease. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad. Just going to stay for a minute and put up some of your comments. Gone past the hour mark, so I may as well just stay here a couple more minutes. Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, guys. Love you lots. Like vodka shots. Sophie 10, Pedro 2. Wow, typical from Newman. All right, at ease. Bye. I'm really going now. I'm going to go have some birthday lunch. Maybe some seafood by the ocean.